Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is your host Carmina, astrologer, card reader, and also interested in human design. So we have again with us today Denise Mathew. Welcome back, Denise.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Denise has her channel on YouTube. It's called Be with Denise Mathew. And she is a human design specialist. She has, I think, on that channel most videos about human design. She also has a different channel, which is a totally different branch of life about crafting jewelry, because just as a spoiler, her soul planet is Mars. So she's interested into metals and jewelry and crafty things like that. So Denise, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about Michael Jackson. And because you know something about his chart, it'll be even maybe better. We can jump in back and forth. Controversial, but we'll just look at his chart. I mean, it won't give us details about what he did or didn't do, but it will just talk about him. And just a disclaimer that we're just going to look at his chart. We're not going to make any decisions upon what he did or didn't do. We can't really know that. Nobody can really know that except for the people that are involved.
Yeah, I personally didn't see that documentary yet, so
Neither
I
have I.
don't
Yeah,
know.
so we're both going in completely unaware of the information out there.
Okay, so do you have his human design chart? Can you share it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think last year I made a card video about his timing some events in his life with the cards of truth. You can also check that out if you're interested in
Yeah,
cards.
absolutely. That would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as far as human design goes, he's a projector, which is an energy of recognition, which, you know, basically we know that was something that was started really young in his age, where he was recognized for what he did. The one thing that he was driven by, if you look at his chart, he basically is driven by willpower and emotional power. So he was very emotional, and he was very driven and very competitive, which we talked about. You said that he had some, you know, he was talking about people who,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was very competitive with his fellow artists. Like, he had this feud with Prince, and he was also talking about other artists and also with his brothers. Like, I saw this video, like the Shadiest Diva moment, where he said during a concert, "This is going to be our last concert together," and his brothers had no idea. So I wonder if he has the gate of shock or something.
He doesn't have the gate of shock. But having said that, I mean, I think that, you know, when you have the willpower, it's you are very my way. It can be very about my way. And I think that that's kind of how he lived his life. I think he did get his way, you know, because he was a star. But, you know, if you look at his top four numbers, which is 70% of the personality, he's got enthusiasm, he's got obsession. So he was really obsessed with what he did. And I don't think he took anything very lightly. I think it was very serious. And the thing about the 9, it's all about this idea in your head that you just can't get out of your head. It just continues to roll around in your head. I mean, this can keep you up at night if you let it. So he was grounded by his ideas. And so it was probably always about how to get further ahead, how to do more. And so on the other side, you also see this 40 energy, which is also about not feeling loved enough. And I think that was very, very something that was very prevalent in how he presented himself, not feeling loved enough. And I think that, you know, his childhood wasn't the easiest. So it only probably made it worse for him. The other thing
that also influenced his music a lot, and his singing, because the sun is the planet of the singer. He's like the star on the stage, like the sun. So it's interesting, like you said, that it's there in the 40, you know, like loneliness, maybe that's pushing him, you know, to be a singer. And also, like we were talking before, the 16 of enthusiasm. So
yeah, exactly. The enthusiasm was there, and you could see that in all his concerts. The 40 is also about just not feeling that you're loved enough. And the thing about the 40 energy is that you could have a bunch of people always around you and telling you, "I love you so much," but you'll always feel that, "Oh, I'm not really loved enough, and they really don't love me." So it can be a tough energy to carry, because even if it's not as true as you think it is, you believe it's true, and so it's true for you. The 37 is about a charming energy, a sweet energy. And really, I think if you look at Michael Jackson's persona, it was all about that sweetness about him. And I think that's what he he really drove home that he was a sweet guy, and he was an innocent guy. And 37 is all about sweetness and innocence. And so it makes sense. So you have these as the top 4 numbers. So I think it really did define his personality. And then, of course, we look below the top 4 numbers and see what else is underneath there. Well, if you look at the 50, that's all about rules and regulations. And he's got it a lot in his chart. He's got it in his moon. So he was driven by rules and regulations. He's got it in his Rahu. He's got it in his Jupiter. So that would have been his reward. The other thing about a 50 that is not always common common to know is that it's a rebel energy. It's about people that rebel against the system, rebel against what is. And it's really the rebellion that comes from the 50 isn't about just being different. It's about, I don't like the way the rules are because they're not fair to everybody. So,
he was really rebelling against his record company, Sony. He was saying they're really exploiting artists and things like that. And
yeah, so that makes sense, right? So he was driven, by, and if you look at his progression if you look from his south node to his north node, he did become more rebellious as he got older. That really did happen. He wasn't, well, I mean, he was doing a lot of crazy stunts. I mean, for lack of a better word, I mean, when he took his baby and kind of had it hanging over that was all happening after his 40th birthday. So, who knows what was going on, behind the scenes, but it would make sense that the rebellion became more of something that was important for him to express later on. Now, if you look at, it's always nice to look at the Saturn too, about the lessons, and what were the lessons that he was here to learn with. Well, Saturn is an 11. 11 is all about ideas, like an abundance of ideas. So someone with an 11 energy in the Saturn has a lot of ideas, but they have to decide what ideas are best for them. So that was one of his biggest lessons. And so maybe he had a lot of different projects and ideas that he wanted to do. And maybe he, had to really decide which ones were the right ones for him. And also it was about making sales. Now, see, the thing about the 26 energy, it's a really great energy for sales. And anybody who carries the 26 or even the 44 will have energy for sales. But sometimes this can be called the energy of the trickster, or the energy of someone who is trying to spin a web so that it looks really good, but maybe it's not so good. So a lot of people would say, if you go to a used car salesman and the used car is not it's not a good car, and someone with this 26 energy can sell you the car and say, oh yeah, it's the best car in the world. And you drive it off the lot. So the key with this energy, and of course, because it's in Saturn, you want to get the highest expression of it. The key is that you sell because it's a good sale for everyone. It's not just a good sale for you. So it's more of it is a tribal energy. So it's good for the people, and as well as it's good for you. So you're benefiting, but the people are benefiting. But when you take it purely just for yourself, then it becomes an energy that is not good anymore. I mean, that's when it becomes a trickster.
Do you think his most of his energy is focused in individual, to tribe, or collective? Like, what do you think?
He's got a lot of tribal, because if you look at, he's got the 50, he's got the 40, 37, he's got the 26, he's got the 59. So he does have a lot of tribal. He does have, there is a
big family.
Yeah, exactly. The individual is a 28. I would say he's got a lot of tribal energy. I really do. And I think so the family would have been important to him. And because it's not just about, like, if you look at his chart and you say, well, he only has this many gates, but you also have to remember that he has the 26. So he's got the 50 in 1, 2, 3, like I said. He also has the 26, and then he's got the 37 and the 40, which are in the top numbers. So, like a lot of that it becomes more powerful. The more times you have a gate featured in your chart, the more that is becoming a theme in your life. So it becomes much more powerful. And then the individual energy, which is the 28, I mean, that's all about struggle. So struggle was something that was important to him. It is in his Neptune. So that again is a generational energy. So anything in Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are generational energies. So it can be very prevalent in your life, but it's more of a theme for that whole generation. So, and then
Yeah, he also has the 3 in Venus and South Node in the design.
yeah, 3 is mutative. It's about bringing mutative ideas, right? And the other one is so when we look at his in his personality side for his South Node, when you see the 42, you see something, a little bit more information about him, in that obviously, because of this is called the closer energy. So a person with this energy is not always going to be initiating things. They may find it more difficult to initiate, because if you don't have either the 42 or the 53, we talked about Jeffree Star's last time, and Jeffree Star is a 53, and that's all about initiating. What happens is once a project is initiated, you have a 42 energy that will come in and close it. So someone with this may have a hard time starting things. So what it appears to be is, I mean, he was out there doing a lot of different things, and I think he was being propelled, he was being recognized, and I think that that's how he was being initiated. And he was coming in and saying, okay, you've seen me, you've started the project, I can close it for you and make the deal. And it kind of makes sense if you look at, he was part of the Jackson 5, but the Jackson 5, I mean, they were a group. Were they a group before he ever came into the thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he added, he came into it afterwards, after it was already started.
I think they all started it together. I'm not sure if the older brother started it, but I think they all started it together, the Jackson 5.
Okay, so it makes sense. And then another thing that we see, like, this is very, very different than the last chart we looked at. We see a lot more of the same themes, like I just said, playing out. We have the 32 going in Rahu. I mean, that's all about ambition, big ideas, trying to make things happen. And that was his Jupiter. It was all about, getting to have that big ambition realized. So that, he had big ambitions. It wasn't something that he was just a wallflower, and I think that if you have this 40-37 sweet energy, it's showing someone who has this real sweet energy, but also has big ambitions, big ideas, big dreams, and they want to really move forward. I think it would be interesting to see his chart not against Justin Bieber's chart, but because Justin Bieber had a lot of the same trajectory, child star, moving forward. It'd be interesting to see what the similarities are, because there is a very similar trajectory where they rose to stardom really quick, had a lot of emotional problems. I mean, Justin Bieber is still dealing with it right now, so it's interesting. The 2 energy is another thing that, which I said that between, if you have half of the 2, like 2 or 14, or even the whole channel, I mean, that's considered kind of lucky. This is about the managing the money part of it. So sometimes people with the 14 have luck, but they don't know how to manage it, so they spend a lot as much as they win a lot. He also has a 23, which is half of the 23-43. Again, innovative energy, seeing things from the big picture and fast forward thinking. So you can see where he would have really, been able to see things in a different way. But if you look at his chart and you just say, okay, what is the magical thing that shows up? Yeah, he had a lot of potential, but how come he used it? Well, maybe his family, because he was tribal, maybe his family really helped him to accomplish things. And when you look at the
He also
36,
helped his family a lot, I guess.
exactly, he did help his family a lot, and and that really goes back to the whole tribal, this whole, the downside to the 50 is, yes, they can be rebellious. They make like rules. The other downside is this responsibility to people who you don't necessarily have to be responsible to. This whole idea that any gates that come off the any gates that come off the spleen are considered the fear gates. So it's these sort of instinctive fears that we have that drive us. It's gut fears that were, the 50 is all about letting down the people who matter to you, letting down the people who love, not doing the right thing, and maybe someone suffers because of what you didn't do. The 32 is all about big dreams, but it can always be about never feeling that you'll ever accomplish those big dreams, never feeling that you'll ever be good enough to get that ambition pushed forward. And the 28 is always about struggle. It's about struggling. but sometimes you can get lost in the struggle and not really realize that you don't have to struggle for everything in your life. So there's a lot of balance with these spleen energies, that you need to, and the way to deal with any of these energies is to just basically push through that fear and know that nothing bad will actually happen. And there's other fears in the chart, but that's the way you deal with them. So yeah, he had a lot of fears too. So not an easy chart, but the willpower is one of those magical things that can really help a lot to propel you through. It can also burn you out, which I think a lot of the stuff that was happening later in his life, it was about burnout. He was burnt out. He'd had so much, and he was sick, and he couldn't sleep. And it was literally, he didn't know how to turn his willpower off.
Yeah, and he was really exhausted by touring. He said he really hated touring.
Yeah,
It was too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we see a lot of things like we can't judge, and whatever allegations we see, he has the sweet side, but we also see that he has the capacity for deceit.
Absolutely.
On the other hand, so there's a lot of things for that.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing that we has a 59. I mean, that's like a sexy energy, and
I'm sure a lot of people, like, he was collaborating with these people, and I'm sure they connected to his gates. They had channels together, like his producers. I know that he kind of stole the producers that his brother wanted to work with, and he just invited them to his place. So that's the willpower.
Yeah, well, exactly, the willpower, exactly. And the thing about the willpower is it's just like the will is a motor, and anything that is a motor goes off and on. It has a pulse energy. So if you have an emotional center, that's your motor, then that would be your emotional wave. But for the will center is work to rest. And so what that means is that when you have a will center energy, if you continue, because they have this ability to push through everything, to not, stop. And what will happen is they can get sick if they don't actually take a break, because the will center will, it's like it says you can go as far as you think you can, but if you go too far, we're going to pull you back, and that will be by health issues or something will happen. So that's the thing about the will center. So yes, he was pulled back because you there's this whole idea that you just don't want to stop, and you can't stop if you get so obsessed with the doing of the will center. And it's about resources and abundance, and even if you don't need it, it's always about collecting more. And there can be spending energy. Like he was a big spender, right?
Definitely, he liked to collect very expensive things like mummies and whatever. He was, he was very eccentric. You can say that.
Yeah, he was eccentric. And then if you look at the 36 is always thinking that there's something better out there than what you have in front of you. So always searching for that better dream, that better ability to be happy.
Yeah, he was eccentric, but he was also a very smart business person, because he bought the broadcast rights to all the Beatles songs. I mean, I don't know if all of them, but a lot of them. So he was making money every time you heard the Beatles songs at the radio. Michael Jackson was making money. So
I didn't know that, actually. That's pretty interesting. Oh yeah, so he was a savvy businessman. I mean, that makes sense, because when you have the 32 featured in a couple times in his chart, I mean, that would really show that he was, and it was about rules and taking care of people. And when I say taking care of people with the 50, that's not necessarily a nurturing, caring energy. It could just be, I'm taking care of you. And sometimes, to be honest, the 50, the energy can be oppressive in that it's like, I'm taking care of you because I know better than you. And this is the way you're going to be taken care of, even if you don't want to be.
And how do you think his 1-3 profile plays out? How that played out in his life?
Well, the 1 and 3, the 1 is all about, initiating. It's not really about initiating. It's about finding out all the information that you need to. You're investigating. I mean, that's the key word. And then if you have the 3 profile, the 3 line, the third line, it's all about experimenting. So what he did was he investigated and then he experimented with what he found out. And that's literally what it is. And it's really about, all profiles are different. The 1-3 profile is all about finding out more about yourself. It's all about finding out about how do I interact in the world. And it's less about how do I interact with other people in the world. So it's a real self-discovery of the self when you have a 1-3 profile. And when you're learning about yourself, that's how you learn to interact with other people. But that's not really the focus of your, for lack of a better word, destiny. Your destiny is about finding out about the self and about who you are. And I think that, that's what his journey was about. Whether he was able to accomplish it or not, I don't know, but that's what he was meant to do. But I mean, you can also, he's got a lot of 3 energy in his chart. So he did a lot of experimenting, if you look at that,
Yeah.
So, and he did experiment with a lot of different music, but the funny part here is that I don't see, like, a lot of times you'll see some energy down here for music. I don't see that down there. So that's kind of interesting. But when he does have an open throat, that really shows, I mean, the open throat is a type of, a lot of people don't like, they will say, oh, that's really an awful thing to have an open throat because you're not heard, you're not recognized, and that kind of stuff. But the one thing about the open throat that's beneficial is that it can have this beautiful singing voice. It can sing to different populations. The whole thing about the open throat is it's wise about the energy of the throat. So it can connect to a lot of different individuals rather than just one, because it's very flexible or fluid in how it expresses.
Yeah, it connects to the masses because we also see, it's not a nice. I think there was someone in his life who was connecting that 11 to his 56.
I would
I'm
think
sure
that would be important too.
Yeah.
And then, if you also look at his head gate, and it was in his moon, he only had one gate up there, and that's the 63. And the 63 can really pound you in that you're always doubting, am I good enough? Is this right? Is this the right thing? Now, the whole point of the doubt is not really about beating yourself up. The whole thing about the doubt is that sometimes when we have new things and new experiments in our lives, we have to have somebody who will say, oh, well, do you think that will work? And could this be a problem? And so that's always good, because if you're making a car, you want to make sure that everybody's put their 2 cents in so that no wheels are falling off when you're driving down the road. So that's what this 63 is meant to be. It's very it's a pragmatic energy that can help things from happening. So it will be like a safety gate, I guess. So will that really work? But having said that, in the dark side of it, it can always be doubting, am I good enough? Can I do this? That kind of stuff. So that could be always rolling around. And when you have the moon, you're driven by the moon. And it was a foundation for him. So 63, a 4 energy, the 4 is all about a foundation. His foundation was doubting. His foundation was doubting. His foundation was feeling that he's not going, he might let people down. So really tough energy, any way you look at it. I mean, he also has commitment. So, I mean, that's why he never gave up. He was committed. And when you see the 29, you see a lot of this energy of just sticking with it, not giving up no matter what hits back at you. He's got it in Pluto as well as he's got it in his Mercury.
Yeah, so having it in Pluto is like maybe he should have chilled, given it a break. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know. We can only suppose, make assumptions.
Exactly. So, yeah. So, I mean, interesting chart. We don't know anything about what did or did not happen.
Yeah, because in the human design chart, you can't see about, those things. You just see personality traits and you see some inclinations. You don't see exactly like the events that the person actually took in his hands and did.
It's not a predictive tool. It's a personality tool, but I think if you look at it as what it's meant to be, it is something that will help you with your relationships with other people, help you with yourself. Because really, if you do know yourself better and you know the way you're reacting and acting, then you can start to understand yourself better. And I mean, for him, the 1-3, that's exactly what he needed to do. He needed to understand himself better. He needed to know why he did what he did. And I don't think he did. I think that he was just, basically driven by his willpower, just moving forward from A to B to C and just never really stopping to focus on, who am I and what the hell am I doing? So.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. Anything else do you want to add about this?
No, I think I,
Yeah, you went through it pretty well.
I think I talked about as much as, the other thing that we could say, the last thing we could say, he's got a lot of openness in his chart, which when you see any openness in your chart, it means that you have a lot of like open identity in the center. That means he was open to a lot of different ideas of what he could do, like a lot of different things. Like he could dance, he could sing, he could choreograph, he could do all those things. And so there's a lot of different things that he wanted to do, but there can also be this inability to decide what he wants to do. This is all about, open spleen can be having a lot of health issues or having no health issues at all. And open sacral, burning himself out by doing more than he should have, which is exactly what happened to him in the end, how he passed away. So yeah, so that's about it. I mean, there's a lot of, when you look at a human design chart, you can look at the chart, but sometimes you just step a little bit deeper in it. You can start to feel the energy of who they were. And there is such a melancholy here in this energy. And there you go. Oh, the one thing is the 40-37 that I didn't talk about is it's all about making deals. And literally that would have been a real big deal for him to make deals and arrangements. And if somebody broke a deal with him, he probably would never forgiven them. So
yeah, because his earth is there, so that's what grounded him, right?
Exactly, earth and sun.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I have to say, and I think that was a lot.
Thank you very much. It was a really interesting. Can you hear me? Yes, it was a really interesting exercise, and even if you're a fan, even if you hate this person, it's really interesting to see what human design can say about one's personality. Thank you, Denise. What's your YouTube channel again?
Be with Denise. Just be with Denise. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Be with Denise Mathew. Yeah. Sorry.
Just be with Denise Mathew.
Yes, exactly. My last name is there too. So there you go.
Wonderful.
Not to be confused with Denise Mathew. That's the other channel that you were talking about.
Yes, you can subscribe to both of them. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Maybe I'll see you again soon to check out some more human design intriguing information. And I'll see you guys later with more videos, and bye.
Bye.